You're welcome back. Well, despite the increasing price of crude oil, Nigeria's external reserve is depreciated by $1.37 billion, and that's about 3.37% in the first 6 months of 2022 to 39.16 billion as of the 30th of June. Well, that's according to the number that we have from the CBN, even though there's some contradictions about that. But we do not have any proof, so we'll not dwell on that. But what does this mean, this depleting foreign reserve? What does it mean for Nigerians? What does it mean for you, residents in Nigeria, doing business in Nigeria? We have the team lead with Jos Business School, Mr. Ezekiel Gomez, joining us now from Plateau State, Jos, the capital of the state, to tell us how important or not this is this morning. Good morning, Mr. Gomez. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. So let's start maybe from the basis and say, how important is the foreign reserve of a country to the people? How important is it?
It's important in very many ways. First, it enables us to know how much we can finance imports into the country. And you know, Nigeria is heavily import dependent. So the lower the foreign reserve, it means the fewer months we have to be able to finance our imports. Secondly, it also determines the exchange rate to a large extent. You can't defend your currency if you don't have if you have a depleted exchange foreign reserve. So these two are very important. And you know, the exchange rate determines a lot extent the value of goods in Nigeria, since many of the economic activities are import dependent. So the foreign reserve is a very, very important determinant of currency strength and also import availability.
So obviously, for Nigeria, a major source of feeding that foreign reserve is our crude oil, you know. But now we just discussed the issue of oil theft. Nigeria has not been able to meet up with the quota. And so in spite of the surging oil prices, which is more than the budget for the year, we see that we are not even able to feed into that oil reserve, into our foreign reserve, which is why we see the depleting foreign reserve in the country.
Yes, I mean, it's a very sad situation, really. We cannot even export up to 1.8 million barrels per day like we used to. We're exporting just about 1.1. Like you said earlier, I saw the first discussion. A lot of it is being stolen. There's so much theft going on, organized theft, not ordinary theft, serious theft going on by almost every aspect of the oil industry. The oil industry players themselves are involved in the theft. Security agencies, several people are involved in this theft. So we cannot even export it. And if we cannot export what we have in terms of numbers, we cannot earn foreign exchange. So I think the crude oil theft should be an issue of emergency. It's not just solving it by an app. I mean, NNPC and the security agencies, the federal government should declare emergency in this sector, because if this continues, I can bet you that by end of the year, we won't have much crude to export, because currently we're losing about 15 million liters per day of crude oil to theft. And that's, if you translate that, that's over 300,000 barrels per day. So a significant chunk of money they would have earned is going to theft. So that oil theft is denying Nigeria. And not only that, we're not even exploring enough because of insecurity and other factors like vandalization of pipelines. So all that is contributing to the fact that we are not selling enough to be able to build the foreign reserves.
And then, you know, sometimes we kind of forget that Nigeria does have potential in other areas, non-oil areas, which could also feed into that foreign reserve. But we've just turned our attention to oil. You know, and that's so sad.
Yeah, we've been spoiled silly by oil. I mean, so we depend so much on oil. I mean, we know that the non-oil sector can generate much more than oil. I mean, the agricultural sector is there, the solid mineral sector is there. I mean, a ton of crude oil owes, it's much in value, not as high as probably a ton of gold. And we have all these solid minerals in Nigeria. So in terms of mining, that's a serious area that we have to pay attention to. I think we're still paying lip service to mining at the moment. And then agriculture, we're still paying lip service to agricultural exports, especially even to West Africa, even to Africa. We can export a lot of food to many parts of Africa. But at the moment, most of it is smuggled out, and government earns virtually nothing.
You know, just before we leave that oil, there's also this notion that the transformation of NNPC to, you know, the commercialization of it is going to affect the external reserve even further. I don't know if you're also in alignment with that.
Yeah, I mean, the NNPC is now a limited liability company, so it can only pay dividends back to government. I mean, from profits. If it doesn't make profit, it can't pay you anything. So it's a limited liability company. You have to treat it based on that premise. So before then, it was a parastatal. So any surplus could be taken into the national coffers. But now it's a company, so it cannot pay anything unless it makes profit. And so also the fact that before now, there were 2 charges of tax that NNPC was liable. Now there's only one tax, only profit tax you can collect. So the amount of money or funds that NNPC will now pay to the national coffers will significantly reduce. The aim is, of course, to make it more efficient, but I don't know, in the short run, we're going to see virtually nothing coming from the NNPC in terms of what was coming before.
So this is a major threat to the Federal Reserve, because if we can't make money, or we're not making as much money as we should from crude sales, the non-oil export is also threatened. Then what happens to our reserve? Where do we go from here?
Unfortunately, we have to keep on depleting the reserves if we have to fund export. But we must find alternative ways of building the reserves. I've mentioned the fact that mining, the solid mineral mining is a huge sector that we can do. Even in the short run, we can do that. But it's going to be more in the long run. Agriculture in the long run, yes, we can still go back to it, because without that, and of course, the fact that Nigerians consume a lot of foreign goods is another area we can look at. We are so import dependent. We love importing, we love traveling. So we go back to the same port to take the foreign exchange. If only we can reduce the amount of non-tangible goods being imported into the country. Non-tangible goods, I mean, the goods that don't produce anything but just to be consumed. We love consuming foreign products. And because of that, we're depleting a lot of our foreign reserves. These are issues that we can address. The central bank has continued to give out forex to areas that are not productive in the economy. That's a very sad situation. Central bank must be disciplined in terms of dishing out foreign exchange to non-productive sectors.
So I guess, I mean, it starts from you and I. What are we consuming? Perhaps if we taper our tastes to consume local products, then we will need less, you know, for our imports, and then we will also save the foreign reserve from all of this.
Exactly. I mean, you and I, all Nigerians, we have to look at what we consume. People enter shops and start saying, is this imported? Is this local? And all those kind of things, because every single good imported into this country is bought with a dollar or some other currency. And this is going back to the same national pot. So I mean, and every travel we take out dollars in our pockets. Every single expenditure that we do as Nigerians, we must be aware of the fact that it affects our foreign reserves one way or the other.
But there's also the argument that if Nigerians have been used to good quality products, if we see good quality products, even if they are locally made, we will consume it. But if they are not of good quality, then we will ask for the foreign one.
That's good. That comes back to our regulatory agencies and SON, and NAFDAC, etc. We must ensure that our producers, and that's also to us, a lot of our producers cut corners to produce goods of low quality and dump them into the market. It's something that is also going to affect us. If we must produce goods, the goods must be good quality. Nigerians are very discerning consumers. They don't just buy anything. They buy things that are of good quality.
So just before we start saying, oh, the government should do this, the government should do that, we also have our responsibility. But apart from Nigerians now, what for you are the low-hanging fruits dealing with this issue of our depleting foreign reserve?
But the lowest hanging fruit is more production. More production. I mean, there's not much and less of imports. We have to rearrange or refocus our imports to only critical sectors because in the short run, we can't do much about this. And also to check the oil theft, to increase the amount of export of crude oil, because a lot of it is going to oil theft, like we all agreed. significant amount is being stolen by Nigerians.
All right, Mr. Ezekiel Gomos, team leader with JOS Business School. It's good to know that Nigerians have their responsibility. The government also has its own responsibility. And I believe if we meet somewhere in the middle, we'll see some impact in this issue.
Thank you. Yes, correctly. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for being on the show. All right, so that's it. When we talk about oil theft, we think it's just the government. But guess what? You and I, we do have responsibilities too to fill up that our depleting foreign reserve. You can do it, I can do it. And then we would, of course, look up to the government to be the regulator and do even much more. Let's take a break now. When we come back, let's talk women and socio-economic rights. What has it got to do with development? Find out after the break. This is Business Morning on Channels Television.